The Galactic Union's xenobiology database had one universal consensus, agreed upon by 47 spacefaring civilizations across 11 star systems. Humans could not track. Not in the real sense. Not the way the Vreth hunters of Calidor Prime tracked, through quantum-sent threads that lingered across dimensions. Not the way the Solari stalkers of the blind nebula tracked, through bioresonance pulses that read the emotional imprints of footsteps. Humans had no enhanced sensory organs. No pheromone-reading glands. No subsonic hearing arrays. They were, by every measurable biological metric, blunt instruments in a universe of precision tools. The Galactic Union's xenobiology database had never met Ethan Cross. The planet Varec 9 had no official name in any colonial registry because no colonial registry had ever managed to keep anyone alive on it long enough to file the paperwork. It was a death world by every classification: Class 7 atmospheric toxicity, apex predator density index of 94.3, magnetic field fluctuations that killed most navigation equipment within 48 hours. The Solari had tried to establish a research post there 60 years ago. They'd lost a team of 11 in 3 days. Ethan had been there for 4 months. He wasn't supposed to be. The assignment was supposed to be a survey drop, 6 hours on the surface, collect atmospheric samples, leave. His shuttle's landing strut had snapped on a hidden rock shelf. 6 hours became 6 days, became 6 weeks, became 4 months, and somewhere in that time, Ethan Cross had stopped trying to survive Varec 9 and started learning it. The distress beacon still pinged, faithfully, every 12 hours. The Union had received every single signal. They just hadn't sent a rescue yet, because their probability models gave Ethan a 0.003% survival chance past week 2, and they weren't in the business of risking good ships for statistical noise. Alpha Zarek Thorne found the human first. He was the pack leader of the Varen, the apex predator of Varec 9's northern continent, 6-limbed, iron-scaled, each standing 2 meters at the shoulder with a jaw force capable of crushing the compression alloy walls of a scout vessel. The Varen hunted in coordinated packs, communicated through subsonic growls layered with chemical markers, and had not had a natural predator in recorded evolutionary history. Zarek had been tracking the strange, two-legged creature for 11 days before he understood what he was watching. The human tracked back. Not with instruments, those had died in week 3. Not with any ability Zarek could name. The human moved through the forest and read it the way the forest read itself. He noted where the bark had been scored by passing scales. He pressed his small, soft fingers into the soil and held them up to the light, reading moisture and pressure. He watched the flight patterns of the carrion birds. They circled differently when a Varen kill was fresh versus old. He catalogued which plants grew near Varen dens because their root structures responded to chemical secretions in Varen waste. He watched the insects. He watched the shadows. He watched the nothing, the absence of small animal movement that meant something large had passed recently. He tracked the way no creature on Varec 9 tracked, by building a model in his mind and then testing it, adjusting it, refining it. Not instinct. Not biology. Cognition. Zarek had lived 93 cycles. He had killed things that made the human look like a hatchling. And for the first time in his long, blood-soaked life, he felt something adjacent to awe. He revealed himself on the 12th day, stepping from between the ironwood trees into the human's path, fully expecting the chemical fear flood response that every creature on Varec 9 produced when a full-grown Varen Alpha appeared without warning. Ethan Cross looked up from the soil he was examining, looked at 6 meters of armored apex predator, and said, in a calm voice, "You've been following me since the rain on day 1. You walk heavy on your rear left limb, old injury, healed wrong. I left the carcass of the ridgeboar near the eastern stream 3 days ago. That was for you." Zarek stopped. The human had left him a gift. He had known he was being followed, tracked the tracker, assessed the tracker's injury, and made a diplomatic offering. Zarek sat down. The human sat down across from him. That was the beginning. The others came in their own time, drawn by a combination of curiosity and the strange new equilibrium that had developed around the humans' territory. Skara was a maw serpent, 40 meters of armored muscle that hunted by sensing the electrical impulses of living hearts. She had circled Ethan's camp for 2 weeks before he figured out she was drawn to the hum of his dying beacon. He deliberately modulated it, Morse code rhythms, and watched her respond to the patterns. He began to associate specific rhythms with specific behaviors: food, rest, acknowledgement. He was teaching her a language before he understood that's what he was doing. The morning she coiled 3 of her great loops around his camp's perimeter and slept there, he understood she decided to guard it. Dusk was an ash phantom, a creature that hunted through camouflage so perfect that most prey never knew it existed until the moment of death. It had no name in xenobiology databases because no researcher had ever survived close enough observation to catalog one properly. Ethan found dusk by finding where dusk wasn't, the negative space in a forest where birds refused to sing, where insects avoided, where the light seemed slightly wrong. He'd sat at the edge of that space for 6 hours, not moving, not speaking, and then set down half of his remaining food ration and walked away. The next morning, the food was gone. The morning after, there was a dead ridgeboar outside his shelter. Dusk's version of friendship, apparently, was keeping Ethan supplied with protein. Keth was the most dangerous of the 4, and the one Ethan understood least at first. Keth was a thornback, a creature so aggressive that even Zarek's pack gave them a wide berth. They were territorial to the point of irrationality, attacking threats 20 times their size on pure principle. Ethan had encountered Keth on week 6 and had survived not by fleeing, not by fighting, but by doing something no creature on Varec 9 had ever thought to do when faced with an enraged thornback. He'd mirrored its posture. Every bluff. Every threat display. Every aggressive color shift across its dorsal spines. Ethan had watched and reflected them back, and somewhere in the confusion of what is this creature, why does it do what I do, Keth had paused long enough for the aggression cycle to break. After that, Keth followed him like a shadow, not with warmth, exactly, but with the possessive loyalty of something that had decided Ethan was its strange, inexplicable creature and would disembowel anything that disagreed. The Union rescue ship arrived on day 119. Lieutenant Commander Vesa Oren of the Solari Expeditionary Corps had been sent because the beacon had never stopped, and someone in records had finally done the math and realized the signal had been consistent for nearly 4 months, which was statistically impossible for a lone human on a Class 7 Deathworld, which meant either the equipment was malfunctioning or something unprecedented was occurring. She descended with a security team of 6, all armed with pulse disruption rifles rated for Class 7 fauna. She found Ethan Cross sitting by a fire. Surrounding him, in what could only be described as a loose defensive formation, one massive 6-limbed iron-scaled apex predator, 40 meters of coiled maw serpent, an invisible ash phantom whose presence was marked only by the fact that the air around the camp felt different, and a thornback that was sitting on Ethan's boot. Vessa's security team raised their weapons. Zarek Thorn raised his head, and the sound he made was not quite a growl and not quite a word, but it carried the full weight of 93 cycles of apex authority. Ethan stood up and held out one hand toward his team. "Lower the weapons," he said. "They're with me." The silence that followed lasted approximately 4 seconds. "They're with you," Vesa repeated. "Zarek's been letting me run with his pack on hunts. Skara follows the beacon. I'll need to bring the beacon when we leave or she'll track the ship. Dusk is shy, don't make sudden movements. And don't touch Keth unless you want to lose a hand, Keth's just possessive, not mean, there's a difference." Vesa Oren had 3 advanced degrees in xenobiology. She had spent 20 years studying alien fauna across 14 star systems. She looked at Ethan Cross, soft-bodied, unaugmented, biologically blunt, standing in the middle of 4 of the most lethal organisms ever documented on any Deathworld in the known galaxy, and she said the only thing her mind could produce. "How?" Ethan Cross looked back at Varec 9, at the ironwood trees, at the shadows where dusk shifted, at Zarek's steady amber eyes, at Skara's slow, rhythmic coils. I paid attention, he said. And I showed up every day. The Galactic Union's xenobiology database was updated the following cycle. Humans cannot track was removed. In its place, 3 new entries. Humans observe. Humans adapt. Humans befriend. Do not underestimate them.